Hello everyone, Troy here again. Today we're looking at the newest game in my RPG collection. Today we're looking at Free League's Coriolis, the Third Horizon, which is the newest game coming out from Modiphius. So like Tales from the Loop and Mutant before it all uses the same D6 system as found in Mutant, and they're all coming out of Sweden by way of Kickstarter. Now this game is a space opera game wherein there's multiple factions plying for the right to control an area of space known as the Third Horizon. The caveat for this game is that it is billed as Arabian Nights in space. So most of its setting influences are that of the Middle East, basically. So there's mysticism, you pray to icons, the manner of dress and food and culture is all greatly influenced from the Middle East. So we'll flip through the book and we'll have a look at this beauty. And I say that lightly because it is a beautiful book. So the table of contents breaks down as an introduction, your characters, skills, and talents, which, like Mutant, is where your meat of your character is developed. Combat, weapons and equipment, ships, and star travel, which is important for a space opera game. Then we get into the setting lore of the Third Horizons, the major factions, the people of the Horizon, Coriolis itself, the space station, the system, some more information about the Third Horizon, and then we start getting into some specifics about plot hooks and mini campaigns and adventures built right into the book. Like several of the Free League books, Symbaroum is a good example of a game produced by Modiphius, that they always use these beautiful art pieces within their tomes as both chapter separators and also as borders in their books. And this one is no different. It is something to behold. It is quite beautiful. So I'll do a quick flip through. I might pander on about the game itself, but this is mostly to give you a look at the physical product. So basically the setting is such that there's two factions. The first people that came to the Third Horizon did so through portals some time ago. Humanity had underseen a large war, and with it there was some cultural degradation at that time. And eventually the people were in the first horizon, they reached out to the second horizon, and finally the third horizon. But before these portals were found, however, the humanity, when it was at its pinnacle, sent out these ships, these arc ships, basically, and one of which was the Zenith. Now, many years later, the Zenith arrives at the Third Horizon. These first come people have already been there and already created this culture based upon this icon worship. Now the Zenith people come with their advanced technology because they had not experienced the degradation of culture. And as such, there's a competition of these two peoples. They create other factions. There's a league of different factions that come together to form a central government. And these things all come into play. Let's have a flip through here and we'll look at the different character archetypes in the game. Now there's the artist, and again the art is very consistent through these books, and it's very stylized. It's almost more like paintings than what it is trying to be photorealistic. Data Spider rather, which is like a techie type character, a fugitive, negotiator. Let's look down here at some of the information found within these stat blocks. It's very simplistic. Like Mutant before it, these games do not focus on a lot of statistics, even though it's your attributes and skills that generate your dice pool. It is not a numbers heavy game. It is rather rules light. And if we look at the different concept skills, you can see that there's several skills listed in each type of character that would fit within this negotiator archetype. And that just simply means when you're doing character creation, when you're spending your pool of points to determine your skills, the ones that are concept skills, as seen here in this lower section of the stat block, just means that you could put those skills up to 3. Wherein the other skills, if you were to choose them, you can only put a maximum of 1 in during character creation. So basically it gives you an idea of how to create a character that fits within this archetype. You can still create the character you want. These are just suggestions and some limitations, but I think with the options here and the skills found within the game, you should be able to create any type of character you would like to see in a space opera setting such as this. There's a good variation of face characters, tech skill characters, and also characters that have some combat capabilities. Now we'll get into this major chapter, chapter 3, which deals with the skills within the game, which is very important. So as I was saying, it's like Mutant, where you use your attribute number and your skill number. Let's say you have 3 in each, and that will determine a number of d6s you roll for your dice pool. Those d6s you roll, and if you get 6s, you generate successes. Unlike Mutant, however, if you roll 1s, you can have counter things happen that are negative. In this game, there's a idea that if you do not succeed, if you do not get any sexes rather, you can what's called pray to the icons. Let's have a little look at this piece of art here. Just see how breathtaking it is. Again, the color palette is very consistent throughout the book, and the style of the art is also very consistent, and I think it's beautiful. It's similar to what you would have seen in Symbaroum, I think, the same style. I'll have to go back and look at that book and see if the artists were used, same artists were used, because it's definitely in the same vein. But as I was saying, if you fail your skill check or combat check, you can pray to the icons to get a reroll. But this game, if you do so, the GM, or the person running the game, as a game master, generates something called dark points. And with these dark points, these characters, the GM rather, can use these to do rerolls for NPCs or to affect the scene and such. Much like Destiny points in a game like Star Wars or something of that ilk. Just flip through here. And again, there's information on combat, which is quite easy in a game like this that uses the mutant system. There's a critical injury chart, which is always fun. Yeah, for instance, so if you were in a combat scene and the game master had a pool of, let's say, 6 dark points and wanted to use them, they could use 3 dark points to cause a character's gun to jam. Things like this to influence the scene. It's just a back and forth, just so if the characters are using this currency to generate further success and aid for them, it also gives the game master a chance to balance it out. And that's how it's presented to the game too. It's this natural occurring force in the universe that seeks balance. So when the players pray to these icons to generate these additional dice rolls, that counter force in the universe is later going to work against them. So there's some detail and focus on the clothing. And again, it's so we can get that Middle Eastern Arabic feel. Whether you want to use that and delve specifically into all that in your game, it's probably up to you. But I think you would be missing out if you didn't also focus that in your game, being that it's one of the things about the setting that makes it unique. I'll just do a little flip through here, expedite this process up a little. So I'm a fan of the system that's used in Mutant. It is, as I said earlier, quite rules light and fast in play. It's easy to generate these dice pools, roll them up, find your sixes for successes, and determine the level of success with your skill check. This book is a little more fleshed out than what you would find in the Mutant Year Zero core book, but that's probably because you need to factor in ships and ship combat, which in any game that focuses on space opera will take up a large section of a book, because if done properly, it will bring in additional rules, and this game is no different. Fantastic. The star map on the background is beautiful to look at. I really like the black background. It really makes the content on the pages pop. I can't say enough about this game, and well, I haven't played the game yet, but about the book itself. It is fantastic, which I've come to accept or expect when I'm looking at a product produced by Modiphius games, because to be honest, I believe they're putting out some of the prettiest and well-constructed books out there at the moment. So we start getting into the setting lore, of which it is quite fleshed out. Talks about the history, talks about the current happenings within the setting. You could play any type of game in this setting. You could play a political intrigue game. You could play a game about mercs. You could play a game about merchants. There's so much that you could do. Everything is supported by the player concepts and also by the setting itself. So it's only limited by your imagination and what your players actually want to play. There's new places being found, so there's room for exploring. There's room for military conquest. There's not much that you couldn't do in this setting based on my just initial glance and preliminary research on the game before picking it up. There's your icons, all of which come into play when you're praying to get aid for a specific attribute. Each attribute is tied to a specific icon. You're also born under a certain icon as your zodiac or something similar, and as such you get initial starting abilities and or benefits for that when you're doing your character creation as well. So there's a heavy influence on the icons and on faith within the game. So again, that might not be comfortable topic for some people, and if so, I would suggest avoiding this game, because if you were to, take this from the system in this game, you would be doing it a disservice. So the space station itself, which is the main hub for the setting, is fleshed out greatly. I believe this is the location of the seat of government and stuff like that as well, so you can see how it would be heavily used in play. I'm going to start skipping through here a little bit more now, because we get into the planets as well, and as you can see, this is lovingly illustrated. The layout of the game is consistent, and I consider it to be beautiful. Everything seems to pop out of these dark backgrounds. And I'm going to skip through this stuff because we're starting to get into adventure stuff and stuff that I wouldn't want to spoil. There's a bit of a bestiary here where you cover some NPCs and some examples of characters within the system. There's some maps and stuff that are specific to the scenarios given in the book. Pretty cool too. You get something to photocopy if you wanted for space combat maps. And as I was saying, there's maps for some settings as well. Your backers, again, this same beautiful, intricate artwork that they often use in their games. So the book, if you scan down here, you can see that the book is glued and stitched, which is always good. It is matte finish. The pages within are quite thick and glossy. So if anyone's interested in a space opera game that uses a rather easy rule set that is a beautiful tome and you want to add it to your collection, I suggest picking this up because I've been very happy with it. Cheers.
What we do here is go back.